What's this? Do you know what this is? A what? Rack? I don't know what animal is a rack, but it's a lamb. It's a sheep. Sheep with blood coming out of its neck. And it's got a rainbow. Do you see the rainbow? Yeah. So we read about this when you were gone. And do you know what the lamb is standing on? What does it look like? Yeah, what color is it? Brown? Are you talking about this? Okay, that's a book. This one is what color? Yeah, it's supposed to be like the ocean. Obviously, the three of you should know that the book is incorrect, right? It should be a, yeah, and it's not even opened yet. And there's something else mentioned in the passage. Malachi, what's that red thing at the bottom? Yeah, it's a bloody moon. Okay. And I said that there are some songs inspired by Revelation. We listened to Revelation song last week, and we'll listen to another one written by Darlene Check. Maybe you guys know this one already. If you guys know it, we'll just listen to one verse. Have you guys heard this one?
Yeah, I heard it
Of the two we listened to, this is my favorite. Let's listen to just one more verse. If I played a game where I ask you what's next, would you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you could know what's next? Okay. I'm gonna do that kind of thing next time. All right, we'll stop there. Okay, so this one is called Worthy is the Lamb. I think pretty easy to remember. And I decided to choose a memory verse not based on a passage. Hopefully that's okay during the worship service. Let's read together. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Before I turn to the next slide, do you guys remember the basic structure of our passage? How many seals are there?
7.
Are all 7 broken? How many are broken, Joshua?
Isn't it like 3?
6. 6 of them are broken, and what happens when each is broken?
There's like different symbolizing like characters and stuff.
Yeah, so the first 4 seals are when you get the 4 what, Daniel? Yeah, and number 5, anyone remember?
I remember the 6th one.
What's number 6?
Like the moon and then the stars. Yeah, they fall down.
Yeah, there's more, but that's the basic idea. And the 5th one, the turning point is the martyrs, the dead people crying out for God's judgment. So that's the structure. So let's read it and then go slower. Sentence by sentence, and I'll start. Malachi, are you going to read with us? Do you think you can read? You sure? I'm going to ask you to read, okay? After me. Now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder, "Come." Read the next sentence, Malachi.
And I looked in, and behold, in the white horse, and
You can stop there.
His rider had a robe like house given to him, and he came out hungry and to conquer.
We opened the second seal, I heard the second living creatures to come.
And now came another voice by there.
Malachi, do you know where we are? Keep paying attention. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth so that people should slay one another, and he was given a great sword.
when he opened the third seal,
He heard?
I
Mhm.
the living creature said, "Come."
I looked, and behold, a black horse.
That's right on the past the other night.
And I heard what seemed to be a voice and music of wolves, living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for the denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for the denarius, and enough corn and wine.
When he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature say, "Come."
And I looked, and behold, and pale horse, and its right name is Death, and hadn't followed
Hades.
him, and they was giving honor.
Let's let Joshua take over.
And they were given authority over the horse of the earth to kill with sword and with famine and with fish, demons, and by wild beasts of the earth.
When the first year I saw near the altar, some of the servants laid for one cloth before the witness day upon.
They cut out with a loud voice and saw the nest of the tree. Along the four mules and blood on both the north earth.
Then they were each given a white robe and told to rest a little longer until the number of their fellow servants and their brothers should be complete, who were to be killed as they themselves had been.
When he opened the sixth seal, I looked, and behold, there was no great earthquake, and the silver sun became black as sackcloth. The full moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell into the earth as the fig tree shall its winter fruit when shaken by the gales.
The sky vanished like a scroll, and the stream rolled up, every mountain and island was removed from its place.
And the king of the earth and the great ones and the generous and the rich and the powerful and everyone slave and free in himself in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains called to the mountain of rocks, fallen with the idols from the face of him who is seated on the throne, and from the rest of the land for a great day of the wrath will come, and who can say?
Okay. Maybe it wasn't clear from our Bible study, but there are Revelation is addressing, it's a book written for the 7 churches, right? Not just the letters, but also the rest of the book is for people living 2,000 years ago, so that they could be faithful to God in the midst of suffering, persecution under the Roman Empire. So many of the descriptions used here, they come from the Old Testament, like the 4 horses, but also much of the imagery and some of the language is very political. Remember, whenever they say, "Worthy is the Lamb, he is the king," those are all political statements, because Caesar, they didn't have the idea of separation of church and state. Everything belongs to Caesar. Your body belongs to Caesar. What you can worship, how you live, all of it belongs to Caesar. So this is a political book. It's a resistance, people living in resistance to the empire. But that is still true today. So some people, when they read this book, they're really interested in what is still in the future for us. They're not thinking about what does it mean for us now, and it has always been the case since Jesus ascended. So is it true that we're living in the end times? Yes. But we have been living in the end times, according to the idea here, for 2,000 years already. So this is basically, I told you that Revelation is a very musical and loud book. This is basically the soundtrack of the present time, how we are to live the rhythm of our life now. So to try to find who are the 4 horsemen, when will this happen? Should we be afraid of an earthquake in the future that will turn everything around? Well, cycles of judgment have already happened many times. The destruction of the Jerusalem temple, that was after Jesus ascended. That was God's judgment. And in various other ways, the fall of the Roman Empire, the fall of other empires, we don't know the future, but this is God's way of dealing with humanity until the witnesses of Jesus are finished, and it's time for the final judgment. So all of this is telling us how to think of our current situation. Is that clear? So this is a political cartoon that especially made sense for people 2,000 years ago, but it is also a political cartoon for us to think about a perspective for today. Joshua, can you read all of this?
I was when the lamb of the world was still sealed, and I heard one of the four living creatures say with a loud voice like thunder, "Come!" I looked upon a white horse, and its rider had a bow and a crown with green turn, and he came a conquering and to conquer. Yea, the white horse was named Conquest and Victory, which was appropriate and victorious loyalty to the earth. And the Persians should Julius Caesar, so Constantine, his white horses.
You can skip the parentheses.
The writer Erdogan imagined that Asian armies will ride horses when triumphing over Rome.
Okay, so there's already this idea that conquerors ride white horses, and there's also something else that helps us see this as a political statement. Daniel, can you take this slide?
At the time, Revelation was written, some people at the borders of Rome Empire used mounted bowmen on the northern frontier west of the Black Sea. Great hordes of the Sumerians and Gittans go and come upon their horses along the road. Among them is not one who does not bear quiver and bow. Dorica.
No.
In the east were the Carthaginians, whose mounted archers defeated the Romans several times. The Romans only began using mounted archers as auxiliary troops in the early 2nd century CE.
Okay, so basically, if we were using a picture of, if you wanted to make a cartoon, a political cartoon with symbolism showing American military strength, you might depict a soldier with guns, maybe a tank, nuclear weapons, something like that. But this is not fitting for the Roman Empire. This is for its enemies, the foreign people around them. But it's not the case that Revelation is saying that the Roman Empire will fall. That's not the threat, really. But it is mocking its power. Okay, so I didn't say that. What kind of threat does this writer represent? Yeah, the idea is Rome thinks it's powerful, it has control, but by appearing in a foreign way on a mounted bowman, this is a statement that actually, no, God is in control, and it gives them pause to think about their own power. And that's also stated, symbolized in the next one. The next rider is permitted to take peace from the earth. Why do you think God allowed the rider to take away peace?
To judge them.
But doesn't it kind of sound bad though? Like the end, if God is a God of peace, the ends is justifying the means. Like if God is good, God wouldn't use something that's contrary to his character. So the thing to be critical of here is the word peace. Is this really peace? Peace for whom, at what cost? So maybe you guys remember in the prophets, don't say there's peace. The false prophets say there's peace when it's not. So to say that there is peace is a political statement. It means that the status quo, the way things are right now, you're satisfied with that. So the absence of conflict is in everyone's interest. Everyone wants peace. but peace times are not necessarily good times for everyone. Do you guys remember what Pax Romana means? You guys never heard of Pax Romana?
Pax Romana.
It means Roman peace. Basically, it's an expression for the Roman Empire. Our empire is an empire of peace. But by saying this, it's throwing a blanket over other problems. They call the rule peace it's a propaganda. It's a way to ignore and silence people who are suffering and justifies the use of further violence or to engage in further war. And people knew that at that time. Tacitus said, Isaiah, can you read that?
They rob, cheer plunder, and call it empire, and where you make a desolation, they call it peace.
Yeah, it's a pretty well-known saying. I don't know if everyone knows this from Tacitus, but the idea that Pax Romana is fake peace, or peace for only some people, is, that's the idea. So is it really peace? And that's supported by Zechariah. So I'm not just making things up. Joshua, can you take this whole thing?
Saw the man on a black horse with mountains going, and at his back the horses were quite white and on his place. I said, oh my Lord, what are these? And the angel who was talking to me said, I'll make clear to you what they were. And the man who was teaching about the answer, he said, those are whom the Lord has sent to go up and down to the gifts. And the man who was doing the multitude said that he knew, but they have gone up and down 30 years at this quiet and rest. And the angel of the Lord answered, saying, O Lord of armies, how long will it take before you have the mercy on Jerusalem from the towns of Judah against which you have been burning with 7 years?
Do you guys see the connection between the two apocalyptic texts? What's the connection, Isaiah?
Of course. And it talks about peace, and the other the highlighted text is about peace. But it's very strong. Like they say that Jerusalem is quiet, but they call but the angel says that judging Jerusalem will be having mercy.
How long will it be before you have mercy on Jerusalem and on the towns of Judah, against which your wrath has been burning for 70 years? So right now is the time of, according to the Zechariah. Is it a time of God's mercy or is it a time of wrath?
Time of wrath.
Yes. So even though it's peace and quiet, it's not peace and quiet for God's people. They need mercy. They're begging for mercy. So is it clear? Taking away peace then is actually God's judgment, and it's a good thing. Peace masks oppression. Removing it is a form of judgment. It's a good thing. It also mocks evil rulers, showing that they are not in control. Pax Romana, yeah, right. And it's a wake-up call also for Christians who benefit from the status quo. If you like Pax Romana, it's not going to last forever. Only God's kingdom will grant you security. Next, now we get to the scales. Yes, we use the scale imagery for judgment, but scales are also used for food, weighing food. And I have here the kind of some context. So 1 denarius is a day's wage for a laborer. And 1 quart of wheat is what one person, one of us, would eat. And so it's not that usually whatever you work in one day is enough to eat that day. That's not how it usually is. Rather, you can provide for yourself and your family for at least half a week or more. But this scenario here, a quart of wheat for a denarius, you're surviving day by day. You guys know what barley is? Yeah. Another staple food. Not as filling as wheat. People preferred wheat. That's why barley is cheaper. 3 quarts of barley for denarius. But do not harm the oil and wine. So what kind of threat is this, basically?
Famine.
It could be famine.
Inflation.
Mm-hmm. Let's have Daniel, can you read the second paragraph?
So John's vision points self-equal Roman Empire grew. Olive and grape sources gathered profitable. However, this meant less land was used to grow grain. The Roman Empire lost the grain, was sent to feed soldiers and the capital. This vision revealed how the authorities will distribute resources to widen the gap between the rich and poor.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure most of the grain in the Roman Empire is not grown in Italy. Grain is a major thing they import. So, making it very difficult for the common people to get by, widens the gap between the rich and poor. Moving on, the final horse kind of summarizes everything. They were given authority to kill with sword, famine, pestilence, and wild beasts. Sword makes sense that this is a part of human sin, but what about famine, pestilence, and wild beasts? Daniel, you know what pestilence is? Disease, plagues. So famine, pestilence, wild beasts. Are these also what are these caused by? Death by famine, pestilence, wild beasts. At first I thought it was God only, but actually when you think about it, there's a combination. Yes, when there is famine, people suffer, but it's not always the case that there is a worldwide famine, and we saw in the case of Joseph, when he ruled over Egypt, he had the foresight to store whatever was a surplus, and then when there was a famine everywhere else, Egypt was able to provide. And same with pestilence. Governments show their inability to control death, to prevent death, because, well, yeah, everyone can suffer equally from the pandemic, but I don't know if you guys were too young to remember, but when some people say we're all in this together, there was very loud pushback that no, the pandemic does not affect everyone equally. And same with wild beasts. It also shows, yes, pestilence, famine, wild beasts, they are brought by God, but how you respond to them can be done in a more God, Christ-like manner, and the effects of it can be lessened. People can show wisdom like Joseph did, and be able to work through it through godly rulership. But no, this horseman shows in situations caused directly by people, or yeah, there are natural or God brought problems, but people do not solve these problems or even harm people through these problems. That is the state of the current world order. This is what is being represented. Taken together, what can we learn from this part of the vision? The four horsemen being treated like a set. I have a few points. God's judgment can work through human history. I didn't put a bullet point, but the most obvious one is God is in control. Without this revelation, we would just think, where is God? Is God here? But this revelation reveals that no, God is the one limiting the evil powers, letting them work, but it's also to his own purpose. They're still serving God's larger purpose. And then, of course, the other lesson is true security is not going to be found now. We're not supposed to be surprised that this world does not look like the kingdom of God. And where do we find our peace? Only from alignment with God's purpose. Moving on. This picture is really graphic, but it's the best I could find. I think it's AI generated. It's not supposed to be really accurate, but it's the best I could find with blood under an altar. Daniel, can you take Leviticus 4:7?
In the place the blood fell, the blood on the horn of the altar, wash perfume and burning for the tent, and for the Lord in the tent of the meeting, draining out all the rest of the blood of the ox. At the base of the altar, a burnt offering, which is at the door of the tent of meeting.
So this is where the martyrs are, where animal's blood would usually be spilled. So this image of the martyrs, what does it convey about them and their deaths? So remember, it's a perspective thing. For the Romans, Jesus' death is just any other Friday, just another execution. But from the lens of the Bible, for Christians, this is the most, momentous time in history. So, what is the perspective here for martyrs?
Complaining. Yesterday you said complaining. Something.
They're complaining. Yeah. What else? How do people think, the ones who killed them, what do they think of martyrs? They did what on purpose?
They killed them. Because they, yes, they didn't believe in Jesus.
Do they think that the martyrs are right? Obviously, that's the reason they killed them, but isn't it the fact that they were killed kind of, at least in their perspective, show that God is not on their side, or the gods are not on their side? Where's your God? He couldn't save you. So that's one thing. Their enemies think they died pointlessly. but their location under the altar shows that they're worthy. They're not abandoned by God, but they're close to God. God listens to their prayers, and they think they died in shame. Their blood being spilled like an animal is dehumanizing, degrading, but God clothes them with honor. And then the next part is God will give them rest, but everybody else on earth, there is no peace. So they didn't die peacefully, but they are the ones who will receive rest. So this is a contrast, different perspective of martyrs. Make sense? I think I skipped a question, or maybe not. I think I mentioned in the Bible study yesterday, what the four horsemen do, it's not quite God's judgment in the sense of vindicating the righteous, right? As long as the horsemen are patrolling, like in Zechariah, they're patrolling and everything's the same. It's peace and quiet, and nothing changes. That means the world is going to go on like this. There's going to be war, famine, people doing sinful things, and etc. So this is not really God's judgment in the full sense. There is no vindication for the saints yet. And God answers their prayer. They're given a white robe and told to rest a little longer. How are those two things an answer to their request? If it is at all. Danny, you remember what a white robe symbolizes?
Like power, authority,
Mm-hmm. What else?
period.
Mm-hmm. We also talked about white being associated with conquering. So they think that their enemies have not yet been held accountable, and so they're not conquered yet. And they're not under God's judgment yet. But by receiving a white robe, that is a promise that they will be vindicated and they'll be shown to be in the right. God has not abandoned them, and it's not their enemies who will be wearing white, but them. What about rest? Is that an answer to their request? So we said that in the Bible study how long, the question of how long is a complaint. Complaints come from an attitude of what? Yeah, impatience, which is basically restlessness. They don't have rest because their enemies have not been held accountable for their actions. But he gives them rest, told to rest, gives them rest. And that is their comfort and encouragement. Let's move on to the sixth seal. These images, what do they symbolize? Mm-hmm. God's displeasure, God's judgment. And the response, let's read this again. Joshua, can you take it?
Then the kings of the earth and the great ones, the generals and the rich and the powerful, and everyone was slain and making themselves in the caves and among the rocks and mountains, calling to all and rocks, palm mountains and
Why is it significant that these figures are the ones hiding?
Because like they're the powerful.
Yeah. It's possible it's saying that the whole world is hiding in caves because it says everyone slave and free. But another way to take it is this is just the powerful ones because not like American slavery in the South, slaves in the Roman times had they could occupy very high positions. It's kind of like a eunuch. Eunuch is not a slave, but there are very high-ranking slaves in the Roman Empire. So that is one way to kind of show what kind of people are the ones hiding in caves. The ones who have wealth, the ones who have power, the ones who have status. None of these things are able to give them security. Do you guys know the saying, resistance is futile? From Star Trek. Yeah. You can't hide. And then they say, fall on us, hide us. What kind of attitude is that? Obviously fear, but what else?
Desperate. You're desperate to not die.
Hmm?
You're desperate not to die.
Desperate to die. There are many reasons why people commit suicide or they bring their own death. I don't know how to say this without being insensitive. There are people who they commit suicide. They had lacked faith. They had mental issues. And so I'm not speaking of those people. But there are those who commit suicide, and it is rather blatantly sinful, such as in this case. How so? So let's read Revelation 16. Daniel, can you take it?
They were scorched by the fierce heat, and they cursed the name of God who had power over these slaves. They did not repent and give him glory. He will gnaw their tongues in English and curse the God of heaven for their pain and sores. They did not repent of their deeds.
So some expressions of God's judgment are actually opportunities for repentance. Remember that I said in the Bible study, the letter to the Philadelphians, I will protect you when I bring a trial on the people on the face of the earth. So this is a trial, and it shows your real character. By committing suicide in this way, in order to avoid repentance, to avoid submitting to God, that is act of defiance. So of course, hiding God's face or to show reverent fear, fear is not sinful. It's what is behind that fear. So this is not a reverent fear. This is a rebellion. Because I refuse to submit, therefore I'm afraid of the consequence of my decision. That is the kind of fear here. So this is not the end then. There's more to it, because as we said, this is only 6 seals. There's a 7th one, and it's not mentioned in chapter 7. We're in chapter 6, right? Chapter 7 is an interlude. And that answers their question. Who can stand before the Lamb? The people who submit to him. So here are the takeaway points. Let's all take one. I'll start. This vision challenges the idea that the current world order is good, peaceful, and offers security. This vision unsettles the complacent who are satisfied now, showing that they enjoy things at a hidden, ugly cost.
This vision reveals all under God control, God's comforted that rather secretly started to remain grateful.
But judgment will come when all observance are complete. This highlights the need to be faithful to God.
6 seals authorize restoring the lamb sacrifice, helping to pass the redemption from all wasteland.
Having covered the passage a second time, is it a little clearer? Or I just made it worse? Because it's not a complete overlap with the Bible study. Was this helpful? Is bringing the cultural background more confusing, or it's fine?
It's fine.
Okay. Take some time to memorize this. Malachi, are you going to memorize too?
I'm done. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices.
Dear Lord, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers, over the man who carries out evil devices.
Who prospers?
Who prospers over the one, over the man who carries out evil devices.
Prospers.
Okay.
I think I'm done. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers along his way. Wait, prospers in his way. Over the man who carries out evil devices.
Yes. Do you think you guys can do it together?
Definitely. Psalm
Psalm
37,
37.
7.